Hello and welcome to Watches with a Woman. I'm here with another woman watch enthusiast. This is Carrie. Her Instagram, Carrie_watch. Carrie, did you want to give a little introduction to yourself to our viewers?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Carrie. I'm Karishma from India. So kind of a watch enthusiast. Been in the business of writing about watches for almost 16 years now. But I've recently started my own YouTube channel and, of course, Instagram, since everyone's doing it, just to explain watches and make people sort of understand complications and what they're all about, because clearly that's something I love.
Great, and I'm so happy to have you on. Really excited to talk to you more. So what was it that initially got you started in the watch industry? Was it an interest in watches that then you followed, or was interest in watches something that grew?
None of those. It all happened by chance. So I was just, it's actually a family business. So we have a publishing business. We publish magazines on watches. I have a magazine that's almost 67 years old now, which was started by my grandfather. So from then my father took over, and then from then I did, so 16 years ago. And then my brother is doing the same in Australia almost 10 years ago now. So honestly, it wasn't a childhood dream. Watches weren't really my thing. I didn't understand watches. I think my first watch, like everyone else, was a Swatch. But I think it was my first trip to Switzerland, and where I sort of visited watchmakers. And I basically started going to Switzerland, staying there for months and visiting factories, manufacturers, and of course the reputed brands. But I used to always trek up the mountains and go to the smaller watchmakers and sort of see how they put watches together. And I think that sort of grew my interest in watches over time. So I have to sort of attribute my inclination towards watches to independent watch brands also.
That's great. What are some of your top brands that you were able to visit?
So there are a lot of brands that I don't know, that they're not very famous, but one of the brands that comes to my mind was a brand called Rudis Silva. It was way up in the mountains in this place called Les Bois. And I remember I had to take a really small train from Geneva and change 2 trains. And I was petrified because I was all alone. And there was no one at the station. And all I could see is this little small house. And I went there, and there was this watchmaker, and he was putting everything together. So it was an interesting look for me. But I think the brand that sort of changed the perspective for me was a brand called Hautelence. It's Hautlence.
Okay. I'm not familiar about that brand.
So yeah, it's an independent watch brand. It started a while ago. I'm not very clear on the dates, but it was the first brand that I visited, and I found it so unique and just beautiful. I'm actually wearing one right now. I can show it to you. It has
That'd be great.
A TV screen shaped case. I don't know if you can see it.
Really unique. And then is it kind of skeletonized, or is that just contrasting?
It's kind of skeletonized, but it has, so it's a really, really nice, unique brand. They make very limited watches, and they've come a long way now. They've had their ups and downs, of course, but this one here that I'm wearing is, it's the Invictus. And what's really cool about it is that they can customize the watch to how you want it. It's the basic watch, the hours, minutes, small seconds. It has the chronograph and the date, but you can customize it. So I kind of customize mine to pink and black because, you know, the whole pink obsession that I do have. So they kind of customize it, but it's really cool because you can also change the strap to whatever color you want to. So initially I had a pink one, then I had a white. Now I've put on a gray alligator.
Nice. Yeah, I like the alligator with it too. Yeah. Kind of a sporty watch, but it kind of contrasts.
Yeah, it kind of changes the whole perspective of the watch completely. So that's just one of the brands, but the others, like, of course, I love the manufacturers that I've visited. The Audemars Piguet, Jaeger-LeCoultre, most of them that I've visited when I have been in Switzerland. And they do some fantastic work too. I mean, the watchmaking skills that I've seen with these brands is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I would love to visit more watchmakers, see the actual watchmaking process. So that would be incredible.
Yeah, it kind of changes your perspective. You know, it was my answer to a lot of people when they'd ask me questions like, "Oh my God, why is the watch so expensive?" This kind of answers your question. I mean, I had a lot of questions about why there's no diamonds on the watches. Why is it so expensive? And I don't know whether that's a question everywhere, but here in India for sure. And it's a task explaining to people about, you know, the intricacies of fine watchmaking and what actually goes into making a watch. But I think once you actually visit the manufacturer, you see exactly why, what you're
Yeah, you
paying
see
for.
what you're paying for. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So do you look mostly or work mostly within men's watches then, because that's the majority of the market, or do you work or talk about women's watches much as well?
So when I started my Instagram page, it was basically about the watches that I love. And my personal taste is larger dials. So clearly the
Mhm.
men's watches come into play. I like anything that's more than a 39. Um,
Yeah, I think
but
my
no,
smallest watch is 40 millimeters, so
yeah.
I feel you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it. I like larger dials. They look nice. I think they make a statement. I think we don't have relatively very large wrists, but they still look
Mhm.
nice on the wrist. That being said, I do like women's watches a lot, but they're the regular Serpentes, or whether it's the Rendezvous by Jaja Lecoultre.
Mhm.
But if you ask me for my particular choice, then definitely I prefer a high complication watch on my wrist is something I would prefer.
Yeah, you do tend to get more complications on a men's watch,
Yeah.
and then maybe more bling on most women's watches, though there
That's
are some
changing
that
now. That is
it's true.
changing. Yeah, that's changing. You'll see some interesting watches that are actually creating interesting brands that are creating complications for watches. There's this
Hmm.
brand called Christophe Claret, and they've done
Okay.
this watch called Margot.
Hmm.
I have it on my page, and it's beautiful. And it's a complication that's actually created by Christophe Claret himself for women. And I mean, you just look at that watch and you can't stop looking at it. I mean, you won't stop staring at your wrist.
Hmm. That's really great. I think that because watch sizes are so big now as well, women can wear more complicated watches and
Mm-hmm.
get things because it doesn't need to be a 32 millimeter, 34
Right.
millimeter, 36 millimeter watch
Yeah.
necessarily. Although
Yeah.
those can look good too.
No, I
Um,
think they do. I think there's also a trend of big watches in between. Although I feel the trend is dying. People are moving more to the classic size now. I feel
Definitely.
even men looking for 38s and 39s now instead of the 45s. But
Yes, it
personally,
did get
I do
really big
like
there for a
it.
while.
Yeah, it got really, really big. Yeah, I think there was a 60 millimeter also that was done by Audemars Piguet and also by Panerai, if I'm not wrong. Those were huge.
Yeah, it's a monster, but
It's a
I mean, I
clock,
guess if you have a pretty
basically.
big, yeah, wrist clock.
Yeah.
um, yeah, especially with my wrist is like a little under 6 inches, but I'm not going to try to pull off anything bigger than maybe a four. The Pull Prof, the Mega Pull Prof, that's my biggest watch,
Mhm.
but that's more of like I feel like it's a more of a interesting gadgety looking piece versus
Yeah.
just a big watch. So
Yeah.
as a woman, I kind of think it kind of works as almost a fashion statement as well. Like I can get away with a little bit more because
Yeah.
women can get away with more as
Yeah,
jewelry
that's
and
true.
stuff. So
Yeah.
that works. But yeah, it's fun to get some really cool watches and good
Yeah.
sizes.
Yeah.
So what do you have in your personal collection?
It's an interesting question. I have
Yeah,
a
what do
couple
you
of
lean
watches.
towards? Mm-hmm.
Larger dials, obviously. So, like I said, right, ours is a family business. So, we share our watches, my brother, my dad, myself, and that works
Nice.
perfectly since I love larger dials.
Mm-hmm.
So within the family, we have like a Rolex. There's the day date, the Wimbledon edition. We have a really
Oh, I
old
like that. The
Piaget.
green.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yes.
gorgeous. I don't have it right now, unfortunately. It's in Melbourne with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a Seiko Presage.
Nice. Yeah.
That's an interesting watch. It's a smaller dial, so I don't wear it as much as everyone else around me, but I do have
That's,
it in my collection.
so do your brother and dad wear that more often than you?
Yes, strange,
Nice.
right? But yeah.
Yes. um, yeah, I find I'll not usually share watches with my dad, but he loves the Plo Prof, and because it has the extended the bracelet extension or the
Yeah,
clasp extension, he can do it without having to take any links, put any links in. So
yeah,
that's the one watch. Whenever he visits me or whenever I go to visit him, I'm like, I have to bring that.
yeah.
That's a
No,
little bit bigger than the Presage, but
yeah, it's a little bigger than
that's
the Passage.
the sharing
And
watch
then
that
I
I have
have like
there.
a couple of fun watches. I have another Ortholans actually, which you might find interesting. It's the Jumping Hour.
Oh, nice.
It's the avant-garde. I'm going to try and show you the jumping hour. I don't know whether it's going to be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm rolling it the other way around.
Yeah. I love it. So retrograde.
Yeah. It's
That's
a retrograde
cool.
minutes and it's the jumping hour. It's really cool. It's one of the first few watches that I got myself. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love this one. It's destroyed completely because clearly I don't know how to take care of my watches, but it's
You
also
just
one
wear
I
them.
can, yeah. I mean, now I'm much better. I was an amateur. But I can also change the strap on this one. So I have like different straps for it. This one is a blue rubber, but there's
Yeah,
a
that's
leather,
nice.
there's a white. And another nice one I have is this one that I actually stole from my dad. It's a really old El Primero by
Oh
Zena.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
I
it's one
haven't
of
seen
the
that in
really,
gold.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's a watch that we're supposed to share, but I don't.
Nice. Hey, sometimes it fits somebody more than others, so
Yeah, it looks nicer on me. What can I say?
yeah, I'll go like look at watches with my dad or with my boyfriend, and we'll be looking and they'll try and watch and they're like, "Isn't this cool?" And I'm like, "It looks better on me, but
Yeah.
you could maybe borrow it. That could be a thing."
Yeah. I have some like fun, cool ones, and I have this Tissot that's a really, really old one. It doesn't even say Tissot on the dial, actually. It
Oh
says
wow.
it's
Yeah,
one of those Tissot
kind of
Heritage
funky.
banana watches. It was a gift from Francois Thiebaud, who's the president of Tissot,
Very
and it was
cool.
really sweet. He sort of engraved my name on the back of the watch, and
That's very special. That's
yeah,
awesome. Oh yeah, Krishna.
yeah. So yeah, I have a couple of fun watches. Nothing fabulous and fantastic, but I love it. It basically, so for me, a watch basically is an extension of who you are. So it doesn't have to be like a really expensive watch, but
Mm-hmm.
just something that you look at and you're like, I just have to have this. It's like how generally women feel with jewelry. That's how I feel with watches.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And
Yeah,
it is, there's something so personal about a watch and it says so much about somebody. I feel
yeah,
like it can say even more than a piece of jewelry because there's like so much thought that goes into it. When I got my first watch, I shopped for like my first proper watch, the Tag Heuer Monaco. I
yeah,
shopped for like well over a year trying to figure out what the right watch was
yeah,
for me. So it's like it's something really personal, like it shows something
yeah,
about yourself. So
yeah.
it
But I've
feels like
seen
a
your
big
Monaco.
decision.
That's a really nice one.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Oh, and then I'm wearing the Gerard Perregaux today,
Oh,
which is the
nice.
Financial Time Zones world timer with the Financial Time Zones highlighted. So
It
it
just
shows the
makes me
opening and
happy to
closing hours.
see women wear watches like these instead of just like a diamond studded, I'm not going to name the brands because that'll get me into trouble, but just like regular diamond studded watches. It's just good to
Mm-hmm.
see women expand their portfolio to their watch wardrobes to like interesting watches, and instead of just
Definitely.
studding them with diamonds.
Yeah, and there are some brands now that there are some brands that come out with or unisex watches or more
Yeah,
gender neutral looking watches. Or Bremont, they came out with a women's watch that I was like, I couldn't tell aside from the size. I forget if it was 36 millimeters or around there. And I
yeah,
was like, I couldn't tell if it was a women's watch, but it says that is, I think, mostly for the size.
yeah.
Um,
I think the
is
whole
there,
concept of women's and men's watches should just be like completely like
yeah,
come to a
gender
standstill because
neutral,
it,
make it
it
gender
really doesn't
neutral.
matter. So for example, this one that I have is also a very old one. It's a Century. It's the Century
Century.
GMT
Oh, that's a
chronograph,
really
and
funky mirrored bezel.
it's full sapphire, and it's hand cut sapphire. It's
Oh,
hand
wow.
cut, hand polished sapphire. It's a GMT chronograph,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a beautiful piece, and it looks really good on the wrist. It's not very large. It's a 42, but it doesn't look
42.
bad.
Yeah. Do you know the size of your wrist, just so the viewers have something to
Uh,
think about?
it must be around 7 inches,
Okay.
maybe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think so. So it's not very
Nice.
large. I mean, it's all about experimenting with your watches at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day.
And it's funny, once you get used to a certain size watch, everything just seems more normal.
Yeah,
Because you wear big watches all the time, and like it just
yeah,
becomes part of you.
yeah. When you were talking about Gerard Perregaux, and my mom sort of showed me hers. I said I had to show it to you. This is a watch I
Yes.
would never wear. I think it was in 1970 when she got it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know which one it is, but I mean, I can't even
Oh,
tell the time on the dial. It's so
no.
tiny.
It
Yeah.
is really small, but it's cute.
Yeah. I mean, I would
It
never,
says
I
something
think
about the time.
it kind of gets lost on my wrist. So yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like a bracelet. I
Yeah.
understand why people, why some people like that, but yeah, it's more of jewelry at a certain
Yeah.
point. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, with regards to like being like, can everything just be gender neutral? There was going the opposite direction. There was a woman's watch that was longa. It
Mm.
had kind of a salmon dial, really
Yeah.
textured, rose gold. And I was like, this is beautiful. And I was with some other people, that other watch enthusiast buddies of mine that were men, and they were looking at it and trying it on, and they're like, why does this have to be a women's watch? Like, it was almost
Yeah.
like self-conscious to wear something that's called a women's watch,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
it was super cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least women can be a little bit more, it's more socially acceptable to wear a man's
I
watch.
think we are in general, not just when it comes to watches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So in India, do you see anything, trends that are different than in the Western countries?
I don't think in terms of trends. I think when people are buying watches in India, initially till about 7 years ago, it was all about brand credibility. And of course, the bigger manufacturers were more known. Like globally, Rolex is probably, a brand that everybody aspires to own when they get their first, I don't know, I guess their first paycheck or graduation gift. So Rolex is obviously a watch that everyone looks for. But that being said, I have great admiration for a brand like Rolex. But people have sort of expanded their outlook and sort of expanding the way they look at watches, and it's not just about a status symbol anymore. So people are expanding in I guess with brands like Jaeger-LeCoultre, Panerai, IWC is doing pretty well now here. And a lot of other brands. I think even the independents are sort of opening their gates to coming into India now, because people are more educated. And they know more, I guess. But we have to give credit to the whole online digital influx that has happened. Most of
Social
which is
media.
authentic. Yeah, most of which is authentic. And people are sort of open to the idea. They travel, so yeah, we're more educated now on that front, and people know what they're buying. They know their complications. They know their movements, and it's not just about the brand anymore.
I know that social media, I feel like, and just the readily available information can make it seem more accessible to anybody. And I know that there was the last woman watch enthusiast that I had on to interview. She, when she was thinking about starting her social media, she was a little bit like, maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's more of a men's thing. But it's like, no, it can be anything. And she started doing her own account. So
no, I'm really excited that so many women are. I'm honestly very excited so many women are getting involved, because when I started, I don't think there were too many. There are a few which I look up to from the international press as well, who really know their watches. But I think it's just exciting to see more and more women understand watches and get into the field of talking about watches, basically.
Definitely.
And through Instagram, I've met a lot of them, like yourself. I've met so many women on Instagram who can talk watches.
It's a great platform. I really like it because I feel like it grows your watch community, your watch fam. You're just like, it's more than just sharing pictures. It's like connecting with people. And when I'm at watch events, and when I didn't have the watch account, it was like I wasn't as plugged in. And then when I got that, and now when I'm at watch events, that's how I exchange information with people, and that's how I like find new watches that I like. Like it's such a great tool. I was missing out before.
Yeah. But that being said, you have to be really careful. I mean, that's one of the message I keep telling people around me, is that I think today everybody with an iPhone or a smartphone is sort of becoming an influencer per se, or a watch blogger. And I think you need to be really careful about, who you follow and the kind of advice you take. And I mean, because everyone wants to call themselves an expert at everything. I'd love to call myself an expert, but you know what? I'm learning something new every day. So I think it's important to identify also on social media.
Yeah, and then there's the whole horology house scandal not too long ago that kind of threw a wrench in people's trust of social media.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's right.
You have to be careful.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that in particular that you would tell women that are interested in watches that are thinking of getting more involved in the hobby or even working in the watch industry?
Yeah, definitely. It's a very, very expensive hobby, no matter what you
It
do.
can
So,
be.
yeah, it can be a really expensive hobby because it's addictive.
Mhm.
Buying watches, it's really addictive. I know I'm talking from my personal experience, but I think the advice I would give women is look beyond the aesthetics of a watch. Read up on it. I mean, I know there's a lot of information online, but the advice I give anybody who wants to start a watch collection, men or women, is that do your research. Start
Mhm.
reading up on watches. There are amazing books out there that you can get your hands on and read about the history and actual history about the brands. Yeah, there's a lot of authentic information online, but I'm still kind of old school, and I think doing your research really helps.
Mhm.
Go to watch events, talk to people. It really expands your knowledge. So, and yeah, just look at the whole concept of complications for women. I mean, even the men's complications, if you want to call it a men's complication, like the moon phase, for example.
Mhm.
A lot of people tell me it's such a useless complication. Do you really need to look at your watch to know the phase of the moon? But just think about it. It's such a beautiful complication put together in that tiny little watch. And I think there's something so like flirtatious and romantic about something like a
Mhm.
moon phase. And it's a beautiful complication to have.
And the Vacheron Constantine, they came out with their first women's collection, and I forget
Mm.
how long, and they had moon phase there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. They have the
it's
beautiful ones.
funny. I don't usually think about the stage of the moon, but um, I saw a moon and I was like, I don't know if it's full or not. And I was like, oh, if only I had a watch that could tell me. I didn't feel like Googling it. So I
Oh,
just messaged my friend who I knew had a moon phase and was like, can you tell me what the
there you
phase of the
go.
moon
So
is?
you
I
do
don't feel
use
like
it.
Googling it. Like I want to know,
So there you go. You
like a
do use
cooler
it.
way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
it can be fun.
yeah. So just explore, expand your watch wardrobe to beyond just diamonds, and they're great. They're
Mhm.
fabulous for those who love diamonds, but you got to expand your collection. I mean, that's an
Yeah.
advice I would give women, definitely.
And like when you look at your Instagram, you see like you pull off really big watches and really unique watches. And
Yeah.
I think that you can't be afraid to try a watch on because you think, oh, it'll be too big, or oh, this just won't work with
Mhm.
what I think I should be wearing. You don't know until you try it on and you see how it
You really
feels.
don't. You really don't. I've tried on some really large ones. If you check my Instagram, it was the Gyro Tourbillon by Jaeger LeCoultre. I tried it on. My God, that watch is spectacular. And I mean, you just can't stop staring at your wrist once it's on your wrist. I mean, maybe it's a
Mm-hmm.
little large for like an everyday watch, but definitely a gorgeous piece. That's a stunning piece. And there's the Lange & Söhne Zeitwerk, which is again a beautiful complication on the wrist. I could go on, and you'd
Yep.
have to stop me at some point. But I think another interesting women's watch that I definitely recommend women should check out is a brand called MBNF.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
They're
love
really
their work.
cool.
I'm a huge fan of the brand. And they recently did, not very recently, but the watch called the Flying T for women.
Was that the one with the tourbillon?
It's
It
the
won
one
an
with the dome.
award.
Yeah, it won at the
Yeah.
GPHE last year. It won
Oh
an
yeah,
award.
the Women's Complication Award or something like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
that is really cool. And
beautiful
they have a
watch.
few different dial variations on that.
Yes,
One with
exactly.
diamonds, but one that's a bit more
Yeah,
subtle.
yeah, yeah.
So
One with a lot of diamonds. I mean, but there are
yes.
others that are really subtle. But it's a beautiful watch. Again, it's a complication created for women.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot to look forward to.
that's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and what you think about different watches. Again, for all of our viewers out there, you should definitely check out Carrie's Instagram at Carrie_watches. Check out Carrie's YouTube channel. Thank you again for watching, and thank you for being on, Carrie.
Thanks, Yara.